Good evening, my darling little sausages, and welcome to the second live stream of Warploque Miniatures. Salutes been cancelled because of the situation. My name is Alex Hunley, and hello, welcome. Is everyone doing alright? Has everyone had their tea? Is everyone sat down and chilling? Who's here? Everyone say hello in the chat. I know a few of you keen little beans were waiting around for things to start. So, good evening to all of you guys. Good evening, Tiny Magic, Espen, Dagfin, David Smith, Lord Maiden, Les, and David Priest. Now, I know a few of you were with me for the first stream at 11 o'clock today. So welcome back. If you did miss the first stream, don't worry. It's all recorded. It's all on the channel. So feel free to peruse that at your will. Hello, O Hardwick. Hey, Wayne. Hello again, Ian. Hello, Ortega. And good evening, Jacko. Ooh, very nice. It seems to be a good bunch. How's everyone enjoying their Saturday? It's probably a lot more chilled out than it probably would have been if it hadn't been for the situation. David's saying 5 minis all base coated and washed. Highlights time. You've got the kind of the boring bits out of the way. Very, very wise. Music works this time. Excellent. Well, I've kind of figured out what goes wrong for some reason because I use OBS to kind of collate all of my streaming gubbins, and sometimes for some reason it just cuts off the desktop audio, which is where I play the music. I've got like a YouTube playlist of all my kind of copyright free music that I use, and for some reason it just stops playing or stops working every now and then. So it's pretty much the turn on and off jobby. Works every time. Dagfin's saying that he's got some garden maintenance done. The summer tyres on the car, and both car and tyres are washed. Now that sounds like a very excellent dad-like afternoon. Jacko saying, have a new gremlin army painted by my 2 little gremlins. Very, very nice. Be sure to share on the Arcworld Facebook group. Which, speaking of, if any of you folks aren't on the Arcworld Facebook group, be sure to pop on over there. There's been quite a storm of activity at the moment due to a lot of the UK guys getting their Kickstarter pledges, which has been really, really good. Seems to be a lot of excitement, which is a big kind of a breath of relief for me. I must admit, it's really, really nice, something that myself and my family have been working on for, well, I've been working on it over a year now. So I started the first draft of the Arcworld 2nd Edition rules Christmas Day of 2018, and so, not quite a year and a half, but pretty much 18 months. So it feels nice to see the project, this particular project come to fruition, but it is just the start of big things to come, and that's something I shall be showing you later on in the stream, if all things go well. In terms of what's going to happen today, in terms of the stream, it's pretty much going to be what I was doing on Tuesday, if you guys were with me then, where I'll be kind of working on some of the sculpts for the next expansion for Arcworld. I'll be showing off some of the painted models, or the new painted models for 2nd edition from the Kickstarter. A few of them unfortunately got locked in my studio when the lockdown happened, but you'd seen most of those anyway. I think the only ones that you hadn't particularly seen a lot of were the beast, sorry no, the halfling thingflinger, which I'm quite sad I can't show off to you guys today. The little frog archer for the beast folk, which everyone seems to love for some reason. It's so strange how like a character that really comparatively did not take me that long to make, but he's really been a fan favourite. Alex Barker saying, I forgot I pre-liked this. It was confusing there for a minute. Oaken Bronze, good evening. Graham, evening to you as well. Ian, harker to all of us sounding like Dixon of Dock Green with our evening all. I'm afraid it's a bit too old a reference for me, buddy. You're going to have to explain it to us younger people in the chat. Or Take saying, I do love the frog. Ooh, afternoon from Chicago. Good afternoon. Don't even get me started with Chicago, man. I'm still absolutely heartbroken that my Adepticon trip was cancelled. But at the end of the day, I did use the time constructively. Tim saying, the Warbard is my favourite so far. Well, shall we have a look at him? So here he is, here's the Warbard. So for those of you who haven't read the faction rule set for the Beast Folk, the Warbard is very much like a support character. So he has abilities that buff the other guys in the warband, but also damage any enemies, because kind of in the lore, the Beast Folk's music sounds absolutely beautiful to them, but to anyone else who isn't a Beast Folk, it is just awful. So I tried to kind of show that and how that would work in the rules, so I'm hoping that he'll be quite a fun character to have in the warband. He is an irregular, which is a faction, like a class, I think called a class, which is kind of, you have all weird ones in there. The Highland Bunny. David Smith says, can you turn the music down, please? Yeah, no problem. Is that any better? So all of the Beast Folk have this kind of tartan look. So here's another model I'm quite happy with. So she's one of the vermin. So in the lore, the vermin are kind of beast folk that resemble the smaller creatures, like the rodents and stuff. So I decided to make one as a guinea pig. So she's another one of these models that really didn't take that long to sculpt or paint, actually, but she's one of my favourites. I just think she's was a really nice, simple model just to slap some paint on. Next for the Beast Folk is this guy. So he is a clan beast. So clan beasts, they're kind of like the heavies of the elites, in the case of the actual kind of classifications of the beast folk, they're kind of like the big brutish brawlers type. So this the main kind of starter warband, you do get one of these, but I thought I'd give people the option to have one with a double-handed weapon as well. And then the final beast folk character I've got. All the rest, unfortunately, are locked up in my studio. But we have the monster, which is the Kelpie. Now, I can't get too good a picture of him because the size of the model. My camera is quite close to the desk, but you can kind of get an idea of what he looks like. There we go. So in the lore, the Kelpie is originally from the country called Scotstain, which is where these particular beast folk are from, and they kind of travelled over to the Mildark, which is the big forest in the centre of the map, and have kind of taken control, but adapted to the waterways of the forest and stuff like that. And what they do is they cloak themselves in mist to confuse their prey and kind of hide their forms, and then lie in wait in rivers or lakes, and then jump out and grab any unsuspecting prey. In terms of the game, they are aquatic, so they can move really quickly in water features, but also they have like a tail swipe attack, which is like an area of effect. They can attack everyone that's around them, and also they have a mist, which makes them and anybody around them more difficult to shoot. So kind of a melee kind of strength character, but also a bit of a support character as well. So what would you like to see next, guys? I'm happy to take requests. Have any of you managed to have a go at any of the rules yet? Or had a bit of a read of them? Have you managed to have a flick through the page? Mr. Hardwick, yes, I can show off one of my big releases for the day, should I say, or big announcements. My next Warp Team Fantasy Football team. So we have this chappie here. So the next team is called the Hats On or Off Hustlers, and this is an example of one of the guys. So hang on, let's I'll show you the official kind of. So I'm having a few people messaging me saying that the music is still too loud. Is any of you guys having problems with that? Hopefully things will be a little bit better now. So, let me... go. So this is the kind of announcement that I did this afternoon. So these guys are evil dwarves. So I'll be doing like a number of these guys, some kind of goblin-like servants, and potentially some kind of bull-like centaurs to go with them as well. I'm really looking forward to it. I haven't done a Warp Team Fantasy Football team for quite a while, since this time last year. So that's something I'm really looking forward to sinking my teeth into again. Right, so let's check the chat, see what people would like to see next. So a lot of people are saying that the music is fine. So perhaps maybe your personal computers or phones or something the sound might be a little bit different. So maybe start playing with the sound settings on there. Dave is asking, have you done one of the optional big hats yet? Not yet. So the plan is that once this weekend's over and done with, and I've sculpted all of the miniatures for my next project, at least the next month's project, I'll be working on those. So I'll be showing off some of the customizable hats that will be separate depending on how you like to have your evil dwarves. Mal is saying, been flicking through the rulebook and the online PDFs, thinking a separate PDF one-sheet page for the rules of conduct would be a good idea just to print off whenever. Absolutely, just to kind of stick to the door if you ever have like a gaming night or something, to make sure people know exactly what kind of mindset they should be in when they're coming to play Arcworld. Jazz is saying, are the humans getting a new heavy, or will they remain the ogre? At the moment, the plan is to keep the ogre. Obviously, I'll be doing a new sculpt, potentially with some different equipment. So once again, I'm quite looking forward to him, but I'll keep you guys informed. Climate Dwarf, greetings from Germany and greetings from the UK. David Smith, if you turn sound down, turns you down as well. I can turn it off if you like. Well, that's entirely up to you. Sounds perfect. Yeah, so the vast majority of people are saying that the sound... Right, so I've adjusted the sound again, so hopefully that'll be okay for everyone. Dave is asking, are you planning on having the hats fit flush to the top of the helmet? The pitch looks to be stuck on the spike like a cork. So I'm probably planning on doing like a kind of a lip where the hat joins onto the helmet, so even if the fit isn't perfect, it'll, you can play about with it a bit, and you would be able to kind of, even if you wanted to kind kind of change the angle of it slightly to make people look a bit more kind of haphazard, then that would be fine. I'll probably sculpt them so they're kind of semi-hollow as well, so if the helmets that you're sticking them onto have any spikes and stuff, it will just fit right in. And even if you just use like a block of blue tack or something, like, you don't even have to glue them on, you know, depending on if your whims change. Mal, I can't remember if you said when the PDF scenario packs for both the Arcanid Queen and the Forest Dragon will be available, but now I'm thinking I need some Arcanid Swarm bases for some games. Well, at the moment, I'll be working on the advanced rules first, because the campaign packs for the Arcanid Queen and the Forest Dragon wouldn't really work without them. So they will be coming along once those are done. But I wanted to get obviously the first round of rules out and hopefully give people a bit of time to get the models painted up, and that'll be something that I'll be working on alongside my other projects. Timothy Duckhouse is saying, I've been looking at using the Warploque weapons with halflings for all the Fellowship. Any plans to formally add them? Well, a lot of the kind of the benefits of working of the second edition is that you can kind of chop and change the rules for them. So if you read in the core rules booklet, when it's in the section with Swords for Hire, where it's suggesting of combining different factions to make kind of composite warbands, and because the Halflings and the Imperials are in the same kingdom, so they're in the kingdom of civilization, that means they can essentially chop and change their miniatures or characters as much as you want. So yeah, just take the Warploque muskets from the Imperials and just pop them over onto the Halflings. Dagfin, since it's a digital model, can't be that difficult to have two separate ones, one with a hat and one without. That is true, but the whole point is that the customer would only have to buy one. Whereas if I did you know, essentially two separate models, the customer would have to choose which one they would want to buy. Whereas if I do the hat separate, it means that they can use the set both as helmetless and with the hat as well. So now we've looked at the Warp Team Fantasy Football teams, let's get back to Ark World. So I think I remember Jacko in the chat saying that he wanted to have a look at some of the Wild Elves. So here we go. So as I said, quite a few of the models for all the factions unfortunately were locked away in my studio. So I don't know when I'll be able to get those back. I'm not sure when the studio will be open again. But in the meantime, I can show you some of the ones that I've got. So here is the Wild Elf Warrior with a bow. So I'm quite happy with how she turned out. Once again, I tried to keep the paint job quite simple, just to kind of show off the model. But yeah, I'm very happy with her. So the next model is the alternate Lycanhawk. So you get one of these in the Wild Elf starter set, but just in case you wanted to field a warband with more than one, I decided to sculpt an additional sculpt. So these guys and a lot of the kind of the elven creatures are summoned out of bits of bone and wood and stuff from like the forest and things, and you actually summon them in when you're playing the game. So they don't start on the board. The elves kind of do feats to summon them, and one of the big things is that if they get knocked out or removed from the board, you can just summon them back, which is very, very useful for the elves, especially because they don't have often as many characters on the board as other factions, particularly ones like halflings or potentially gremlins and stuff. So quite useful to use. They're quite good as kind of cannon fodder and disposable units like kamikaze units. I mean, especially the Lycan Hawks, they have an attack which allows them to really kind of dive down and cause some damage, even though they're quite fragile. So speaking of those characters, here's another Wood Fiend. So once again, these are kind of minions that are summoned out of bits of bone and wood and things. And once again, you get 2 of these in the Wild Elf starter set. This next model is something quite interesting. So she is called the Blade Master. So she is the regular for the elves, so the one with a bit of special rules, and her particular skill is that she is like a berserker. So she whips herself up into kind of a killing frenzy, and a lot of her attacks allow her to kind of roll more and more and more dice. So if you get a lot of lucky rolls, she can be very, very dangerous. And to kind of show off the fact that she is kind of really like kind of blood crazed and things, rather than the blue kind of arcanite blue tattoos I've given the other elves, I decided to give her red. Then finally we have the Briar Elk. Once again, he's quite a big model, so I can't really fit all of them under the camera. I'm quite happy with the paint job. Very simple, but here's another kind of constructed creature, but because he's so large and took so much magical energy to create, he's almost gained like a little bit of sentience. Like sometimes when an elf creates one of these, they can run off and kind of fight back against their masters and live on much longer after their creator has died. So these can almost be like wild creatures that hunt for prey to fuel their magical essence. Now, a few of you guys who've been kind of following Arcworld for a while might recognise its similarity to the Unithorn. And indeed, the Unithorn is pretty much the same kind of creature, so if you do have an old Unithorn model and want to use it in 2nd edition, it would use the exact same stats as a Briar Elk. So there we go. So before I show off the small models, let's check the chat. Glad you like the elves. Mal's asking, lore-wise, are there any other elven races or nations than the wild elves around? At the moment, no. Yeah, the wild elves are the only elves on Arcworld, so you don't have the kind of wood elves, dark elves, light elves, that kind of thing. There's those elves going to have to get some. Excellent. The new elves are all fantastic. Got them all. I love the older models, but these look like they'll be lovely to paint. Thank you very much. I must admit, the older elf models are some of the ones which I dislike the most in terms of looking back at them and thinking, oh god. But yeah, I'm quite happy with these new ones. Dagfin saying we've got very familiar with the Wood Fiends during a game of D&D this week. Excellent, yeah. So Dagfin and a few of the lads have been playing some Arcworld themed D&D, which has been very exciting. I mean, I'd love to get involved, but because I've been working on getting the rules ready and getting the web store ready and stuff for this weekend, I haven't really had time to get involved yet, but I'm hoping either next week or the week after I'll be able to kind of sit in and observe these guys play some Arcworld D&D. Different Gear TV, has this game got solo options? It does, and these solo options will be eventually released in the printed version of the advanced rules. One of the things that I'm going to be working on over the next few weeks is the first draft of the solo play rules, which I'll probably send out to all you guys as a PDF so you can try and test it out. The actual bare bones of it we did write before the Kickstarter even launched, but to be honest, I've kind of put it to one side and concentrated on getting the models ready. But now that the models are all sculpted and the rules are done, I can look back to that and hopefully get a working document sent out to you guys soon. So what would you guys like to see next? Which faction would you like to see next? I'll be taking votes in the chat. Ian would love to see the Undead Raiders, absolutely. Halflings, Undead, never seen enough of the rear of the Ogre and the Rider. Undead. Ian says definitely Undead. He loves the Undead more than any other faction. Timothy says vampires. Haha, not yet. I haven't even sculpted those yet. Jazz saved the best faction till last. David, you're such an undead hater, Ian Creasy, lol. I think you were bit once. Absolutely, I feel very sorry for those poor undead. Ian's so bad to them. Oscar Hardwick saying, are you showing off a new faction later on? And second that, seeing everything would be awesome. Well, I'll be showing you the next two factions that are coming out. I've kind of made a bit of a graphic to show you some of the stuff, and then I'll be showing you some of the kind of the work in progress sculpts of what I'm working on for the next Kickstarter, which I'm very excited about. But before that, I will be showing you the undead. So first one is the Undead Ogre. So he is the heavy for the undead. It's a big chunky boy. Fortunately, a bit of the paint's flaked off the back there. I have to reapply that. I'm quite happy with him. So, in terms of his rules, he's pretty much just a big melee beast. One of the special things he can do is vomit on people, which is always a useful thing, so I can ranged attack. And what's quite interesting is that if he's killed by a flaming attack, his rule got a trait which is very flammable, which means he explodes. So, and showers scattered bits and bobs all over the surrounding characters, which can cause quite a bit of extra damage, especially if you explode him at the right time. But yeah, the guy on his shoulder is literally just a torso hanging on there for dear life. So next we have the Elite, who is the Executioner. So he's a very big chunky boy. And he's once again a bit of a melee beast, but one of the things that he is particularly good at is that he essentially has an attack which is a one-shot. So he has an attack called Decapitate, and it has a special rule. If you roll a certain thing, the character, as long as they're on a 30mm base as well, is instantly knocked out. So if you are up against this guy, you'll want to take him out as quickly as possible. Mal is asking, is the Undead Ogre exploding damage flaming or down? Also, no, just normal damage. Jaznaz, are they all resin or 3D prints? So the Archold miniatures are all hand sculpts. So there's no computers involved, no digital 3D printers or anything like that. So these are hand sculpted by myself and cast in resin by my dad. So so Archold, even though I am exploring digital options for my other ranges, Archold will always be 100% hand sculpted. So the next model is one of my personal favourites, the Will of the Wisp. So she is the undead's kind of irregular, so the bit of a wacky one, and she's not particularly a combat focused character. So what her special rules are is that she essentially beckons enemy models, so they're drawn to her if they fail. I think if they fail a bravery check, I can't remember, but that can really wreak havoc in your enemy's kind of tactics and battle lines if they've carefully kind of strategized where they're going to go, and then all of a sudden they lose a few bravery tests and they all just kind of start going towards her. But I'm particularly happy with this model. I think it came out really well, and I tried a few risky things on the paint job, but I think it's worked out nicely. So next we have an undead bandit with a crossbow. So you do get a number of undead bandits with the starter set, so you get 3 with the starter set, but one of the big things of Warploque 2nd Edition is when you actually purchase a character in your warband, they basically just come with like a hand weapon. So all the armor and weapons and equipment and things you have to customize yourself. You add them on top of the core stats. So one of the things I will be doing over the course of the range is I will be sculpting lots of different weapons and equipment options, so that if you do decide to play with WYSIWYG or What You See Is What You Get, you have those options available to you. So there we go. And then the final one I've got with me, and one that leads us quite well into the next faction, is this guy. So he is an undead bandit with dual weapons, but he's also an undead halfling. So I'm not sure how you feel about this one, Ian. Climate Dwarf is asking, will you continue to make the next models by hand, or will you do it digitally sometime? I like that you can see the great handiwork, thank you very much. As I was saying before, even though I am learning digital sculpting, and I will be using that for my other ranges, Arcworld will only be hand sculpted, and that's kind of a personal preference, because Arcworld has always been hand sculpted, and a lot of the Arcworld fans do enjoy the fact that they are hand sculpted. So for this range in particular, I will make sure that I keep that alive. Keep it alive when we're looking at dead people. Mal Edge, oh, hey Carl, good to see you. Mal Edge, very tempted to grab the undead halfling and try to green stuff him back to life. That's actually quite interesting, because I have a gentleman who's kind of a bit of a patron of mine, and he is a big fan of halflings, and sometimes he likes to have kind of small conversions and custom bits made, and he actually asked that very same question. He said, Alex, I really like this model, but could you make him look, bring him back to life? Could you make him look? He sent me a photograph of a character. He's like, could you make him look like this? So I did. So here he is. Gave him a bit of lick of paint. So this is actually the character with the kind of the conversions sculpted straight on. So this is a one of the kind miniature that my guy has ordered. So there we go. And speaking of halflings, who's looking forward to seeing these guys? And they always seem to be the star of the show. No matter where I go, it's always halflings. So it's a good job. I really enjoy making them. A lot of people do ask me, Alex, do you get sick of making them? And especially some of my non-gaming friends, who obviously I tell them about what I do and stuff. They always take the mick out of me, saying, "Oh, have you got a guy asking you to sculpt like a sexy halfling and stuff like that?" So, but as I said, I do really enjoy making halflings, and you guys love them. So, without further ado, Alex says he's just popping out the tokens. The MDF smells so nice. They really, really do. And Andrew at Flatback Forces, who made the tokens, has done an amazing job. Like, I'm really, really happy with the finished product. So yeah, if you are interested in MDF miniatures, go check him out. Flatback Forces, his company's called. Ian's chanting Bayorks, Bayorks, Bayorks. Absolutely, they are one of my favourite factions. Miles saying the halflings are the minis that sold your range for me. Can't wait to start mine. Excellent. So, speaking of halflings, let's get cracking. So here is Town Guard. So this guy is the elite for the halflings, so they've got loads and loads of armour, and that armour comes with the character. So rather than having to equip him with armour separately, when you buy or hire the model for your warband, he comes with armour, so he's a bit of a beast. So there we go. Yep, Flat Pack Forces. So next is the militia with a great weapon. So during the campaign, I kind of did a poll on the Facebook page to see which kind of equipment loadouts you would like me to sculpt additional models for each of the units for the 4 factions, and the one that won for the halflings is two-handed weapons. So I decided to give him a sledgehammer, because the halflings are at least mainly militia. You know, they're working folk who protect their homes from marauding warbands and things. I thought a more kind of rustic tool would be quite good. So there we go. Right, the next model is Trollhound. So once again, you got one of these guys in with your starter sets for the halflings, but in case you wanted to take more than one, I decided to sculpt another one. So Trollhounds are really, really useful in the game. They're very fast, which is something that the halflings don't particularly have. They also have an ability called Cling On, which means if they attack a monster, there's a chance that they can kind of cling on to it and kind of continue doing damage whilst they're in base contact. So if you have a pack of these, it can be quite useful for taking down big creatures. Another thing that they have is something called Pack Hunters, which means if you have up to 3 of them in like a group, you can activate them all at the same time, so you can kind of coordinate. They can all attack the same character and things, so they can be really quite useful if used effectively. And this guy is actually, the paint job is based on my cousin's dog. So my cousin has an absolutely ginormous, I'm not sure what particular breed it is. It's like a mastiff of some kind, and it was quite funny when we went to go see him a few months ago. I hadn't seen him for a few years actually, and I'd never met his dog before. So when I came in and this great big lolloping beast comes up to me and I play with him and stuff, I'm like, oh my god, it's a live, real life Trollhound. So I decided to paint one like him as a dedication, because he was a nice boy. And then finally, we have the Halfling Monster Hunter. So the Monster Hunters are the irregulars for the Halfling faction, so they have lots of kind of special attacks and things that are specific to... Hang on just a second. My phone's going mental. Last time that happened, people were commenting saying that the music had gone off. No, it's just a family chat. Ignore it. So anyway, back to this. So she is a monster hunter. She has lots of special attacks, which once again are quite good against monsters. The halflings are surprisingly quite a good monster fighting faction. So she has abilities that can put down traps, like lasso characters as well. So she'd be quite a nifty character if you're planning on taking on some trolls or other large beasts. She's on the model, she's got a load of backpacks and things. So there we go. It's quite funny, so I get the so I think there's a bit of a delay between what I'm saying and what you guys are receiving, so it's quite funny when like someone comments on something, like for example with David, he's saying show the back, and I'm like, oh hey, way ahead of you, because I'd already done that by the time I saw the message. So don't worry guys, I'm on it. So now that I've shown you the kind of the faction models, or at least the ones that I've got with me, I can show you some of the kind of unaffiliated monsters from the bestiary as well. So first thing is first. So we have the fairy dragon. So she's a character that I really enjoyed sculpting. Quite a tricky model to kind of get right. Thank you very much, Les. Actually, in real life, I kind of use these really iridescent, like flakes that people use for like nails and stuff. You can't really see it on the camera, but like there's all kinds of greens and stuff like that if I do this in the light. But unfortunately, when I took a photograph of it, it looked absolutely naff. So the picture that's on the web store is actually I kind of photoshopped it slightly to kind of reduce the stuck-on parts. So she's quite an interesting character. So in terms of rules, she can obviously fly, which is quite a big thing for dragons. She's a kind of a smaller creature, but she can kind of reflect light from her wings, which can dazzle opponents and stuff. She also has like a healing song, which can heal your character. So she'd be definitely quite a good support character to hire as part of your warbands. Because one of the big things about Arcworld is that monsters are a very core part of the game. So you can hire monsters. You can hire monsters as part of your warbands, and you can also just play as monsters. Good evening. Good evening. How are we? How many Trollhound sculptures are there? Thought there was only 2. Yes, there are 2. There are, just two, Ian. So the next monster is the Peagriff. So once again, another kind of smaller beast. This is a 40mm base, and these guys are like quite good as like kind of guard hounds. So one of the things that they're really good at, they're really very fast, but they have an ability which allows them to attack almost as if they've got spears. So you can kind of attack up to 2 inches away, which is quite rare for a monster, by trying to kind of represent the fact that they are quite swift in the rules. So there we go. Ian saying sculpt a third troll hound for the pack. Well, absolutely. So one of the things that I will be doing before I launch the next Kickstarter for Arkworld is that when you guys have had a bit of time to play the game and stuff, I am going to take requests for additional miniatures to sculpt for the faction. So I'm going to be doing kind of new models for the factions in terms of new equipment, loadouts and things. But if there anything in particular that you guys would want more of, like more kind of sculpts with spears or more sculpts with bows or whatever, I will be taking requests, and then the winning votes will get made into miniatures. So even if you don't want the 2 new factions, there will still be stuff for you if you are keen just to stick with halflings, elves, beast folk or undead. Jacka, didn't you have some other dogs that you had sculpted from before? Yes, so around Battle for Troll Bridge I did do some kind of hunting dogs, but we don't talk about the before times. Chilling Wargamers, Spud saying a bear gwyn. Do you already have one of those? Stephen Mercer, just about to build my fairy dragon. Ooh, excellent. Warhowder for halflings to sit on a bullocks. That is a very, very good idea. I think we talked about this before, maybe when we were at Hammerhead, but yeah, it'll be really, really cool. Right, so the next characters I'll be showing off are the Troggles. So the first Troggle, unfortunately, is locked up. He's in prison. So I'd show off the 2 new sculpts. So here's Troggle number 2, eating a turnip. And here's Troggle number 3, kind of burrowing out of the ground. So for one of the big things that Troggles can do, which no other character in Arkworld can do, is they can burrow. So they have a special action where they can burrow into the ground and kind of move underneath characters, underneath terrain and stuff like that. So they're quite annoying to fight against because they can essentially move and not be hit. But as soon as they come out, it's time to play whack-a-mole. So, Jaznaz, Troggles, they're not baby trolls, they are just small breeds of troll. Like, they essentially fill the same ecological niche in Arkworld as raccoons or something. So, they've got very nimble hands, they like raid your bins, they dig into bladders and stuff like that, and they're just like a general nuisance, and they kind of follow bigger trolls and bigger monsters into battle to try and like take advantage, steal food and stuff like that. So they are real pests, both in the game and also kind of in the lore. Speaking of pests, it's time to show off some Arkworld classics in terms of Grifflings. So for those of you who've been following Arkle for a long time, Grifflings are like one of the cornerstone creatures. I've been making Grifflings since, well, literally since day one. So for those of you who are new, Grifflings are small species of griffins that resemble pigeons and house cats. And they're kind of menaces, like, once again, like, they kind of live in cities and poo on everything, but they also kind of get trained as pets and stuff. The Grifflings from Mildark are wild and well fed, so they're a lot bigger than previous iterations, but I'm really happy with how the sculpts have turned out. So there's a pack of 5. Unfortunately, the first 2 are locked in my studio, so I can only show you 3 out of the 5. So there's number 1. Here's number 2. So he's just doing a bit of a stretch. And here's number 3. She's just having a bit of a sleep. So with each of the Grifflings, I wanted to kind of give them a different colour. Obviously a different pose. So there we go. Ladies and gentlemen, the true heroes of the hour are currently in the chat. Mr. and Mrs. Robin Dawn Huntley. They are the absolute powerhouses who are currently packing your Kickstarter miniatures, or have packed your Kickstarter miniatures, depending on where you live and stuff like that. So most of the UK backers have had their stuff sent, and we're now in the process of sorting out the people who want to have their stuff sent overseas. But my mum and dad have been tirelessly working over the past few weeks, casting and packing, making sure that all of your lovely parcels are well wrapped and presented and getting to you safe and sound. So if you are listening, if you are either awaiting a parcel or if you've already received your parcel, you know who to thank. So for the final miniatures to show off today, we have the baby dragons. So these are the juvenile forest dragons. Fortunately, the paint's coming off the base a little bit. But these little cuties are to go with your big dragon. Even though they are baby dragons, they are still quite big. So here's is how they compare to our halfling. So here's, I think this one's technically number 2. And then finally, number 1. Now, unfortunately, due to kind of the way that they look, it's quite difficult to get a real scope of their size on a photograph. It's only really when you kind of look at them from all the angles that you see how big they really are. So there's the 2 of them, and then here's the little halfling. But yeah, so there we go. So out of the guys that I've shown you today, which one has been your favourite so far? Alex Barkley, the juvenile dragons are roughly kiwi size. No, they're much bigger than the kiwi. Well, at least the new kiwi. So the old ones, perhaps, but the second edition kiwis have kind of scaled them down somewhat. So those guys are now on 40mm bases, rather than the bigger ones. But the alpha will be roughly about the same size. Lord saying the halfling monster hunter. Spud loves the trolls, the troggles. Hardwick, the Warbard, and the Warp Team Fantasy Football Preview Mini. Alex likes the Forest Doggo, Ian likes the Dragons. Dave says, have you got the big Forest Dragon to see with you? Unfortunately, no, because I was photographing him for the core rulebook. He's once again stuck in my studio. Climate Dwarf, all of the Beast Folk. Dagfin says the Monster Hunter. Wayne says the Briar Elk. Jazna says the Monster Hunter. Ian says bless you, Wing.
What are we doing?
Did you sneeze?
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Thank
you. She says thank you. The Warbard is an amazing sculpt. Thank you very much. My dad says mine is the Halfling Thing Flinger. I must admit I do really like that model. I just wish I had it to show you guys. Possibly on the next stream. So, for those of you who haven't watched one of my Tuesday streams, I do a live stream every Tuesday evening. Usually just me chilling and chatting and working on the models I'm working on. So this week I was doing a bit of work on the sculpts that I'll be working on tonight. Once I kind of shown off everything I was wanting to show off. But yeah, if you are interested in what I do and want to kind of take a bit of a peek into my creative process, then be sure to join us on Tuesday nights at 8 o'clock. Tim said, sorry, had to mute. This favourite model, either one of the new elves or the forest dragon. Excellent. I must say, you'll all have excellent taste. My dad's saying, Alex, you must have a pic of the Thing Flinger somewhere. Well, I do, but it was more the fact that people were able to kind of see the model in 3 dimensions, as it were. So oh, hang on, another question. In relation to the adult forest dragon, how separate is the log with the cowering halfling on it? I'll be up for purchasing it to use as an objective marker if possible. Unfortunately, the main body of the sculpt is actually pressed onto the log for support. So it need a pretty brutal attempt with a hacksaw to get that separate. Tiny Magic with the Forest of Dragons campaign be available in the shop soon. As I was saying before, because the extra campaigns, Forest of Dragons and Lair of the Spider Queen, require the advanced rules to really use, that will be released at some point in the future. I can't say for certain when they'll be done, because a lot of it will depend on how much playtesting and kind of feedback I get from the community. So one thing I will say is that if the more feedback you guys give me on your games when you're playing the campaigns, the absolute better, and the quicker I can start working on those bits. So as I said before, I'm planning on releasing the first draft of at least the solo play rules before in the next few weeks or so. So when I do get those out, if you guys can try them out, let me know, give me feedback and things, can make sure that all that stuff gets made as soon as possible. Dagfin saying actually it's a halfling with a very elaborate scenic base, which just happens to include a forest dragon. Very, very true. Right, so we've kind of come to, not quite come to the end of the kind of the Arkworld section of the stream, because I do have a big announcement to make for the next expansion the first expansion for 2nd edition. Or I have kind of more information of my new range, which I've been working on. That's going to be released at the start of May. Now, a few of you guys who joined me on this afternoon's stream will know a lot more about this, but if you did miss it, I have a new range coming out in May. But which one would you like to see first? Would you prefer to see more Arkworld stuff, or would you prefer to see what I've got in store for next month? Votes in the chat. Let's see what you guys want. Arkworld train keeps on rolling first. Arkworld expansion. Arkworld stuffs, please. Patreon interlude. Arkworld. Okay. I would say Patreon first, then finish with Arkworld. Ooh, very nice. Finish with Arkworld. Actually, I guess it would make sense because I could do the Patreon interlude and then kind of show off what's to come into the next expansion, and then I can kind of end the stream by sculpting some of the miniatures. Gavin saying, will the dice be a limited run or will you keep them in stock? So I actually have the dice made in the UK in quite small numbers, so they will be kind of constantly available. Like, I don't have to do a limited run, which is quite nice. So yeah, don't worry, the dice aren't going anywhere, and I will be kind of working on new dice for each of the factions as they come out for 2nd edition. Goblin, stop eating. Sorry, my cat's just woken up and she's already kind of stomping about the models and a bit like, ugh! So, as a little bit of an interlude, I will kind of talk to you guys about what I've got planned for Patreon. So for those of you who follow my personal Facebook pages and stuff, you might know a little bit more about all of this. But for those of you who didn't watch this afternoon's stream, ta-ta-ta-ta. Oh, Goblin, no! Nope. Goblin. Sorry about that, guys. My cat was literally just stood on the table, just batting off models onto the floor. So just had to stop her there before she got to some of the bigger, more breakable ones. So, Warploque Miniatures Digital Workshop. So, for those of you who don't know Patreon, so Patreon is a website that allows you to subscribe to a creator, and essentially pay a certain amount of money per month, almost like not a subscription, but being a patron, and then that allows them to create content. Now, I thought I would do what a lot of my contemporaries have been doing, who are sculptors, where they create a number of digital miniatures on ZBrush, and then create those digital miniatures for their patrons. So they sculpt a set number of miniatures every month, and then the people who back their Patreon have access to those miniatures that they can print at home, or get somebody else to print if they don't have a 3D printer. So the range will mostly be focusing on kind of RPG models, or kind of mass combat models, stuff that you need quite a lot of. I'll be mainly focusing on the kind of the creatures and monsters and stuff rather than player characters, because enough of the guys out there do that already. So I've got a few of them to show off today. So let me just show you. So here is one of the characters. He's a Goblin War Boss. So the first batch of characters for my Patreon, which is going to be launching on the 1st of May, will be goblins. So I'll be working on, over the next few days, I'll be sculpting the rest of the range, and I'll probably be making about 10 to 12 models. So I'll have the War Boss, we'll have a number of kind of troop goblins with spears and bows and stuff like that, probably a shaman of some kind, and then maybe some objective markers. So here is the War Boss. So this guy was sculpted on a computer on ZBrush, and then 3D printed on my personal 3D printer, which is an Elegoo Mars. I was talking about this on the last stream, and he's painted up really, really nicely. Nope. And speaking of the previous stream, here is the goblin that I painted. So this guy is the model that I kind of started and finished for last stream. So here he is. Here he is with his boss. And then here is there's another character for the goblins, but here's what he looks like, kind of fresh off the printer. Not exactly fresh off the printer here. There's a lot of there's a bit of kind of post preparation you need to do in terms of clipping off the supports and things. So yeah, I'll be working on a number of miniatures every month, and then goblin, no. Sorry. I'll be working on a number of miniatures every month, which you guys, if you back the Patreon, can download and print off to your heart's content. In terms of a price point, it'll be very, very reasonably priced. Only about $10 a month for access to each month's pledge, and in addition, I will put the STL files and the models that you've missed to be able to purchase and download once again at a very reasonable price. Mal's saying, I'd be interested in your take on kobolds. Excellent. Dave is saying, I'd love to print an entire regiment of Albionicans. Absolutely, that'd be wonderful. And that would be one of the benefits of if I decided to do Arkhold miniatures digitally sculpted. But as I said before, for Arkhold, I'm very keen to just do them hand sculpted. So they're going to be my kind of traditional range where I really kind of focus and try and hone my art of traditional sculpting, and then for Warp Team Fantasy Football and Digital Workshop, it'll allow me to kind of play with new technology and really try and see what I can do with that new art style. I mean, when you say it's not really a new art style, because I'm hoping to retain my kind of style in sculpting, and I've had quite a few people say that my models still look like my models even though they were sculpted on a computer. Like, so my evil dwarf for the hats on or off hustlers, he was sculpted on a computer. He's actually a digital model, and I was quite happy with how he turned out. So I'm hoping that I can really make some interesting things over the next few months. But I'll keep all you guys informed. As I said, the Patreon will be going live on the 1st of May, and I'll be posting more information on my various kind of channels and such to keep you all informed. But yeah, it's really, really exciting. I'm really looking forward to seeing where I can go with it. Do any of you folks have any questions about the Digital Workshop? Any things you'd like to see me sculpt? One of the big things, I'm very, very keen to talk to people who are role players. What kind of creatures or kind of bad guys would you really like to see? Would you really like to see available? If you have any ideas, please pop them in the chat. I'm very keen to see what you think. Mal saying, perhaps an updated version of your bandits. They were pretty awesome. When you say bandits, which ones do you mean? Sorry, my cat is being particularly rambunctious today. She keeps jumping onto the table and knocking things over, so I'll have to keep just cutting away to rescue my livelihood. Oh, I see, the mercs that I did. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I was thinking about doing some for Arkworld anyway. But you're right, you know, some kind of generic bandits would be really, really useful for D&D games and such. So I think that might be quite a good idea for Digital Workshop, especially if I did lots of different kind of species and stuff like that rather than just stock humans. Timothy's saying some ghostly creatures in your style might be interesting, but 3D printed. Yeah, absolutely. Alex, could the B team make a comeback? Unfortunately not. I'm afraid they will probably never see the light of day. Mal says he's managed to grab a set of the out-of-production Mercs. Very, very lucky indeed. There are only about 24 sets of those in existence, so if you did manage to grab a pack of them, you're a very, very lucky person. So before we move on, if you do have any ideas for sculpts for Digital Workshop, if you like role-playing games, if you're a DM yourself or a regular player and there's a common enemy or something you'd like to see available, please let me know in the comments or drop me a message or a comment on the Warploque Miniatures page. Wayne saying, I find putting a cushion on a chair or window on for Goblin. Yeah, well, she's actually been sleeping all day, so she's just woken up and she's still a very, very much a baby kitten. She's only about 6 months old, so she's very, very interested in everything that myself and my girlfriend do. So whenever she's awake, she always wants to be right in there, right in the middle of stuff. Especially when I'm kind of sat and I'm sculpting or painting and stuff. Like she kind of looks at me thinking, well, why is he focusing on these things rather than me? What's so fun about these things? And I think that's why she's so fascinated with my models or my paintbrushes, because whenever I'm not there, she kind of sits and bats them and stuff like that. Dice, that's another thing that she really likes to play with. I've lost quite a few dice over the past few weeks. In fact, one during a game of D&D, she actually nabbed my D20 literally mid-game, so that was a bit of a problem. And she's a bit of a mischief, but she's a beautiful creature, and we're very, very happy to have her in our lives. Tim's saying that I see a race of cat creatures being created. Well, it's funny you should say that. Come back to Arkhold in about 2 or 3 years' time. Dave Jackson, have you thought about doing some sci-fi stuff for the Patreon? Well, absolutely. Well, one of the reasons why I kind of made the branding non-fantasy centric is so that if I did decide to do some more sci-fi stuff, like I could do it. My knowledge of sci-fi isn't as good as my knowledge of fantasy. I've never really been into it that much. I do love kind of retro sci-fi, like 80s pulp stuff, so I think if I did choose to do that, I would very much kind of focus on that. Perhaps like some kind of pulp 50s, 60s kind of Flash Gordon vibes, or some more 80s sci-fi. But stuff that doesn't really take itself too seriously. Like, I don't think I could do too many Marines in space or anything like that. Oh. Halflings in space! Jazz saying, Alex the new Tiger King. I will never financially recover from this. Buck Rogers style, nice. Yeah, I'm thinking like that, or like, you know, like kind of weird and wonderful, like Judge Dredd, that kind of stuff. Like I can imagine doing like things like that. So as I said, if you do have any more ideas for characters or creatures for Digital Workshop, do let me know. So as we move into the next segment, I finally get to show off. I mean, I've been kind of talking about it for a while, and I'm sure you guys who are quite active on the streams or the Facebook group will probably know this already. but this is where I can make my official announcement of the next release for Arcworld in the future. Just a second.
Goblin.
There we go. So the next release for Arcworld, at least on Kickstarter, will be The Green and the Gilded, which will see the release of 2 new factions, or well, 2 new designs of the old first edition factions. So we have the Bayorks and the Imperials. Now, for those of you who are called veterans, you might know the Imperials as the Albionicans. I have decided to kind of give them a bit of a rename because I've had far too many people kind of get that spelling wrong. So I thought I'd make it a lot more easily kind of referenceable, easily spellable and stuff like that. They are still in the lore Albionicans from the Albionican Empire, but in terms of the actual faction themselves, they will be called the Imperials. And the Bayorks, like once again, I'm kind of sticking to the kind of the swamp orc vibe, but in second edition, I'm turning the dial up on the voodoo elements. So there'll be lots more kind of spiritual voodoo vibes in the design. The witch doctors are going to play a much bigger role in the actual layout of the faction, and in terms of their special characters and creature designs and stuff like that, I do have lots and lots of really fun ideas, and I'm really looking forward to sculpting both of these two, as they've always been 2 of my favourite factions. So in terms of release schedule, I'm hoping to get this Kickstarter launch probably around July. That'll give me obviously enough time to get things sculpted, get things painted, film some like gameplay videos and stuff like that. I'm looking forward to making the kind of the release video. And one of the things I'm also going to be doing is sculpting, as I said before, sculpting miniatures for the previous the first 4 factions to be released alongside. So it doesn't matter what faction you collect, there will be something new in this Kickstarter. Ian Creasy, wow, I want. Excellent. Timothy Duckhouse, zombie Bayorks. Well, it's funny you say that. It's funny you say that because that's. But I'm not gonna say anything more for now. I do, as I said, I've got loads and loads of ideas and stuff for the range. Mal saying, sweet anything. Now, once again, you guys are a few steps behind me, so I've already promised that there's going to be more stuff available for you halfling, wild elf, beast folk and undead fans. Wayne, lots of green glowing magic to paint. Yes, absolutely. So if you've got any of that neon green available, definitely stock up. Mal, damn it, Alec, shush up and take my money. Well, at least let me finish the models first. So, who's looking forward to this expansion? Did you collect the Imperial, the Albionicans, or the Bayorks in first edition? Are you looking forward to seeing the models and the rules updated for the new game? Or what other models would you like to see? Or are you waiting for another faction to be released? If so, let us know in the chat. Alex Barclay saying that he shall indeed be expanding both of these forces. Tim saying Dark Lords. David Priest, oh yes, more of the Redcoats. Lord of Wizards, which are a faction to be released later on. Mal saying, I'd like to see how the Orcs have evolved with your further sculpting experience and what new shinies you have for the Imperials. Mr. Hardwick, I did have a question on the pre-orders. I didn't back the 2nd edition Arcworld Kickstarter at the time. A rough estimate on when any current pre-orders would be likely to go out. Well, I mean, that entirely depends on how quickly my mum and dad can get through all the Kickstarter stuff. So they're working as hard as they can to get all the stuff out as soon as possible. Usually when we're kind of packing a Kickstarter, I would have gone back up north to Yorkshire to give them a hand, but because of the situation, unfortunately I wasn't able to, so things are taking a little bit longer than they normally would, but do not fret, we will make sure that you get your stuff beforehand. No, Goblin, go away. Dagfin saying, what monsters will be in this one? Any new big beasts? We shall have to see. Tiny Magic is looking forward to the vampires. Lord Maiden is looking forward to the wizards. Tim is asking, would love to see how they progress in 2nd edition. Oak and Bronze Swamp Critters making a reappearance. Absolutely. Mount Orion will be great from Wayne. Jacko saying Bayox all the way. Also need a Norsfeld Archer. Looking forward to seeing the Wizards as well. Ian saying been into it since day one. Wasn't keen initially on 2nd edition, but played a few beta games, and now I'm really excited for it to really find its feet. Mal is saying, ooh, Dagfin, good question, monsters. Climate Dwarf can't see some preview for new Beast Folk. Well, interestingly, the Bay Orcs are the same kingdom as the Beast Folk, so they're under the Kingdom of Nomads, which means that they can swap and change their characters to create composite warbands. So if you do fancy making a Beast Folk Bay Orc alliance, you're more than welcome to. Dave Jackson, could we have a Powder Monkey as a playable character? Once again, it's very funny you should say that. Keep watching and I'll show you the models I've made so far. Ian saying Bayox and Albionicans were my original factions. Very good choice. Timothy, a Badger would pull me into the Beast Folk. Very good idea. Badger heavy, that is a good idea. Spud saying, how about some more Norse-looking people to join 2nd edition? Well, we do still have the Norsfald, and they will be making an appearance in 2nd edition. They will be reborn 2nd edition at some point, so keep an eye on that. And I love Yeti. Jacko saying, ooh, I just thought I could put a Kelpie with my Bayox. Absolutely. Mr. Hardwick just popped a pre-order in. From me to your parents, take your time, stay safe, and thank you for further feeding my Fint Mini hobby. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that. So now that I've made the big reveal, I can start showing off some of the miniatures. So first to show off is a model that I'm particularly enjoying. Sculpting is the new Imperial Captain. Now, unfortunately, you can't see that much of the detail of the white because of the lights. It's a bit overexposed, but you can generally see. Now, this is a work in progress as well. There's still quite a lot of work to do. Now, I was showing him off earlier this week on Tuesday, so for you guys who were there on that stream, you'll be seeing a lot of the same stuff, but this is mainly for the guys who are just here today. So he will be leading the Imperials. Hang on just a second, I'm getting the rest of the models ready. So next is an ammo monkey. Well, this is one obviously very, very work in progress. So one of the big differences for the Imperials. Oh, nope. No, Goblin, leave that alone. No, leave that alone. One of the big things for the Imperials for 2nd edition is that they've discovered the use of Warploque technology, which means they use Arcanites to power weapons such as pistols and muskets. And a lot of their kind of strength in the game comes from their kind of high-end equipment, maintaining that high-end equipment. Warploque muskets are very, very powerful, but they have a propensity to jam, they have a propensity to kind of break and stuff like that. Goblin, no. Propensity to jam, stuff like that, and also you can only fire them once per round. However, if you have an ammo monkey, if he's in base contact with a person with an Warploque pistol or Warploque musket, he can essentially reload it for you, and it means you can shoot twice. So he'll be coming in with the starter sets for the Albionicans. So there we go. The next we have, for God's sake. Sorry, my cat literally just keeps jumping up and trying to knock my models over. So here is one of the excuse me. Here is one of the troopers for the Albionicans. So this time I've made his legs a little bit longer just because I took a few looks at the models and he wasn't quite right. Giving him like a kind of a buckler style shield. Here'll be one with a spear. Now, I am using a dolly for these, so there's still oh, for God's sake. Can you get rid of her, Wayne? You put her in the bedroom. Sorry about that once again. Cat problems. So these are the kind of the dollies for the Imperials. So there'll be one with a spear. There'll be obviously adding a lot more kind of detail and stuff like that and customization. Then there'll also be the Warploque muskets themselves. Yes, it is a good job I was wearing trousers, and it's a good thing that I decided to as well, because I wasn't gonna. But saying, oh wow, some people would pay good money to keep the camera at that angle. Well, thankfully my girlfriend is keeping the Dread Beast occupied. So there we go. So the starter warband will be 4 Albionican troopers, the ammo monkey, and the captain. Thank you very much, guys. I'm glad you liked them. As I said before, they are very, very early on. Very, very early on. But I've been looking forward to making these for so long. Because actually the Albionicans were one of the factions from first edition that I was least happy with. You know, I never really liked those miniatures. I always thought, you know, they weren't quite right. So I'm really relishing the opportunity to kind of sculpt them again. It's kind of the same with the elves. Like, it was the Albionicans and the elves that I thought, they're just not there quite yet. So sculpting the elves for second edition and the Imperials has been a really, really positive experience for me, and I've really, really enjoyed it. Ian's asking, will we be able to buy extra powder monkeys? Absolutely. So one of the things I'll be doing for the Kickstarter will probably be something similar to what I did for the first Kickstarter, where I'll give people the options to buy additional sculpts for commonly used character types, such as the powder monkey. Albionican hater of my first edition. Yeah, I'm sure you do, buddy. I'm sure you do. So now that we've seen the Imperials, it's time to look at who they will be up against in the form of the Beorcs. So the leader of the Beorcs will be the Witch Doctor. Now, I sculpted the first version of him back in 2018, and the version that I'll be using for the main release second edition, I'm slightly changing the model. I've changed the pose a bit. I'm just going to update the sculpts, make it a little bit more kind of up to scratch with my modern standards. I mean, once again, you can't really see the detail very much because of the lights, but he is obviously almost like the main antagonist of the expansion. Say antagonist, depends on which side you choose, but he is actually he will be the leader of the Beorcs, at least for the starter warbands, which would be quite different to most of the ones. Obviously, for a lot of them, the mages are like the add-on characters, but for the Beorcs, it'll be the other way around. So the mage will be the commander, and the chieftain will be kind of like an additional option. So one of the big kind of rules things I'm going to be putting in with the Beorcs is a kind of a rivalry between the chieftain and the witch doctor. So if the witch doctor's in charge, there's going to be certain buffs to the Beorcs, and then if the chieftain's in charge, there will be other buffs depending on which way you want to play. So I'm quite looking forward to to kind of really like working that rivalry in with the rules. And there'll probably be a few things like if you take both a witch doctor and a chieftain, like there's almost like a vie for power kind of thing. So I'm looking forward to exploring that concept more. Mal's asking, are there any sideburns and mustaches in the Imperial Minis? Well, absolutely. Actually, I'm not too sure. I might at least potentially not in the troopers, but I'm thinking of one of the characters I'll be sculpting as like a kind of a big burly sergeant, so he'll definitely have a mustache. Then we have the brutes. Now this is an unpainted version of the brute that you saw in the main graphic. The painted version, he's unfortunately locked up in my studio, but I had a spare cast so I can show him off kind of in 3 dimensions. A few sprues kind of still stuck on him. And then an additional, so this is a work in progress for another brute. So this guy, the first guy was armed with a 2-handed weapon, so he would be, in terms of the game, you would have purchased the Bayok brute and then you would have equipped him with the 2-handed weapon. And this guy is equipped with dual weapons, and each of those have different effects. This guy is obviously very work in progress. Look, I haven't even done the hands or anything like that. I'll give him more kind of trinkets and gubbins and things for you to get your painting on. Now, in terms of what else is going to be in the warband, we have the Boglins. So this is the first work in progress Boglin. So for those of you who are new to Ark World, Boglins are kind of like swamp goblins. They're quite small and diminutive and a bit naff. They're kind of sucker up to the Bayoks because they're big and strong and they protect them and stuff. But they're very, very nimble, they've got very, very sticky fingers. They're quite good at kind of getting into nooks and crannies and stealing things, which is quite useful if you're on a raid. So the Bayoks kind of let them come along. So for the starter warband at least, I'll be giving 2 of the Boglin slings, just to give a bit of ranged support. So these are very, very work in progress. I haven't done too much, but if I put them next to an Imperial soldier, you can see how small they are. And then then we have one with a torch and a sack of loot. Because one of the special traits that Boglins have in the game is called sticky fingers, which allows them to kind of steal items and equipment off other characters if they're fallen over and stuff like that. So these guys will be really annoying if they manage to steal your equipment. Because a lot of the kind of the customization in a game of Ark World comes from what loadouts you've given your characters. So if you've given a guy a really expensive item, like for example if you've got an Albionican trooper with an Warploque musket, it's a very expensive bit of kit, very powerful, and then this guy runs up and nicks it. It's going to be quite irritating. So definitely, Ian, for the guys who weren't in the previous stream at 11 o'clock, one of the things I'm going to look into is essentially like a remote game. So I'll set up the board here in my flat and have a camera kind of focused on the board and have the models there, and then we'll have 2 players or 2 or more players depending on the game we play, who will essentially tell me what they want to do with the game, and then I'll move the characters. So it allows them to play games against each other, it allows you guys to see how the game works, and I'll be there to kind of add a kind of hang on, brain fart. I'll be able to add kind of commentary and things of how things work. Might be able to kind of put up on the screen like the stats and things, so when they are doing kind of certain actions, I can show you guys at home what the kind of the rules are looking at and stuff. So I mean, I think it'll take a little bit of tweaking to do, so it's something that I'm probably going to practice next week with a few of my friends and try and get it down pat before I make it public. But if it does become like quite a popular thing, it'd definitely be something I'd be interested in streaming on potentially a weekly basis, depending on how popular it is. Potentially get new players every week, especially when I get my models back from my studio. It'd be really, really cool to do like almost like campaigns, like online campaigns where you have two players who have like war bands and things, and then they play the war bands and stuff, but it's all using the miniatures that I control. But it's still very early days in terms of concepts, and it's something that I'm quite looking forward to exploring, definitely. Tim is asking, are there much difference between the current 2nd edition YouTube videos and the rules that have just gone out? There are a few differences in terms of the ones that I made, around the Kickstarter. Very few. Like the bare bones are still there. I think the only thing I can think off the top of my head that's different is the fact that beforehand there used to be a separate roll to shoot. But it was just roll the dice to, if it's a success, it's a shot. But in the official rules now, the printed versions, it's a feat. So you have the option to essentially dictate how many AP you want to spend to make the shot. The more AP you spend, the more likely you are to make the shot, or you can spend not very much AP and then make more attempts to make the shot. It just gives you as a player more options, whether you want your character to kind of do 2 rapid taps or to kind of really take their time and make sure their shot lands. Mal saying, love the new orcs. Going to be fun building a ramshackle stilt village with jetties and rafts and things, maybe even a chicken farm for them. I've got some halflings I'd be happy to raid for some KFC. Excellent, I'd love to see that. David, would be good to do a live feed at the next weekender. Absolutely. Wayne, potential to design new missions we can play at home. Well, absolutely. So what I was saying at the start of the stream is that one of the big things for the advanced rules that I'm going to be releasing later on is solo play. So play that allows you to, if you're on your own or if you're with friends and you want a kind of an AI warband or monster kind of causing havoc on the board, or if you want to team up with them to take them down, those rules are there. Like I do have a working draft, but there's still some work that needs to be done on it before I release it to the public. But I'm very, very, very keen to... sorry, the cat's come back. Very, very keen to get them out. So stay tuned. Wayne's saying, yep, live feed at the next weekend. Absolutely. Would you be able to come, Wayne? So in terms of the Bayok faction, not the Bayok faction. In terms of the Bayok starter warband, you'll probably have the Witch Doctor, a Brute, 3 boglins, and then maybe something else. I mean, I'd have to do some play testing with the loadouts. You know, one of the things I'll like to try and do is obviously make the starter warbands equal matchups for each other. But one of the things I do also need to consider is the amount of kind of material in each starter warband. You know, there are some models that are much bigger than others, and even though a model is only slightly bit thicker, the actual material costs of that model increase exponentially. Like, you guys who remember from your school science, surface area versus mass and things like that. So surface area versus volume, that's the one. Tim's saying, already thinking of trying my elves against the forest dragon family. Absolutely, that's a great idea. Be sure to take lots of pictures. Like, the feedback that I get from you guys with your own games really allows me to improve the game myself. One of the great things about having the living rule book for the stats is that even though the core rules, the actual mechanics of the core rules are fixed, a lot can change by, you know, the rules of the stats of the characters and things. So if there are bugs and stuff that don't quite work, I can easily fix them. Kind of future-proofs the game rather than it being set in stone and then that's when we find all the bugs and stuff like that, because that was one of the problems we had with first edition, is that even though we did have a lot of players who gave us really, really good feedback and that was really useful, once it was in print it was very, very difficult to change it, which is why in second edition I'd want to do also like a hybrid half printed version, half PDFs. It just gives me that scope to obviously fix rules or add rules if I have cool new ideas for how certain models should work, and it also means that if I do have an idea for a sculpt, I can just add the rules to the kind of the rule sets. You know, I'm not fixed in what I can and can't make. Mal's saying, not sure if I missed it. Will there be a physical expansion book with the second Kickstarter? There's space on my bookshelf. Unfortunately not. There won't be another actual printed book for this expansion. It will just be kind of PDF faction rule sets. But I'm hoping to get the advanced rule book done around that time. So that space on your bookshelf is definitely going to be filled at some point, but it will require a lot of play testing first. So I'm very, very keen to get the PDF out there, get some feedback from you guys on the solo play rules, on the campaign play rules, just so when it does go to print, it's as good as it can be. Oh. Excuse me for a second, folks. I'm just off to grab a drink. That's cool. I'll grab my tablets for all the PDFs. Yeah, that's probably it's definitely a good idea. And one of the things I've also created for the existing factions and all of the monsters that have just been released for the Kickstarter is I've created printable stat cards as well. So that allows you to kind of print them off at whatever size you want and keep track of wounds and various other stat changes and things on them. Like, you can laminate them and stuff, or you can just kind of use disposable ones where you kind of print them off just for that game. And each of them is a separate page as well, so you can print as many of them as you want depending on your warband loadout. But it should. I know quite a few people, especially when we were doing the playtesting, found the cards really, really useful. I'll see if I can get an example of one for you. There we go. So it just has it has a space at the top. So if you are the kind of player who likes to name their characters, this will be particularly useful when you're playing the campaign version of the game, where characters can earn XP and kind of earn extra abilities and skills and stuff. It allows you if you have any changes of action points, or if you're tracking the amount of action points you've got left. If you've laminated the card, you can track it there. Movement, bravery, goal. I left the gold pieces one blank, because it very, very much depends on what equipment you've given your character. And obviously at the top you've got the HP tracker, and then you've got the attacks, and also kind of reminders of what each of the traits are. I obviously don't have space to write out the rules for every single one, so it should be used in conjunction with your faction rule set if you're not quite au fait with the rules as of yet. David Priest is saying it would be great to have a blank character card that can be dropped into Word Excel with a box to import pictures of minis in. That's a very good idea. I might work on that. Yeah, it would be quite cool to have like a section of the card where you could pop a picture of your characters on. I think at some point I might do it as a stretch goal or something for the next Kickstarter, to have like customizable, almost illustrated stat cards, like the ones that I've used for playtesting and for demos in the past have been fully illustrated. It does take a bit more time to do them, but they do look really good. But I thought, as most people are going to be printing these out, I thought the black and white versions would be fine. But depending if there is if there is an outcry for the more kind of made up versions, if you really want to kind of push the boat out, have them properly printed and laminated, or if you want to kind of keep track on a tablet of some kind, make things, because that's the thing. One of the problems that I have is that I'm very much like a shiny person. Like I like things to look nice. I like things to look fancy, and I feel like sometimes I get a little bit kind of too carried away with it. Where it's like, yes, I can spend 3 days making these cards, but are people just going to use the black and white versions? What could I have made in those 3 days? And it's one of the things because I do everything myself, like I really do have to try and think of what my time is worth in terms of projects. As using the previous example, I could, yes, I've got these nice shiny designed cards, but I could have used that time to sculpt 3 more miniatures, and it's not really gonna, people aren't really gonna use them, people aren't really gonna appreciate them. So if I do get a request for more illustrated cards rather than just the black and white printable ones, please do let me know. Your feedback is really, really important. Tim Tim is saying, we are at a stage where half the community prefers digital, the other physical too, absolutely. Which is why I did things I've done things the way that I have, so that I do have the kind of the hard copy physical book for the core rules, and the faction rule sets are black and white, so they are very, very cheap and easy to print off. So if you do prefer physical copies of things, then you can have physical copies of things. But if you prefer digital stuff, I've included the digital PDF version of the core rules in with the downloads folders on the website. So if you do want to purely just use digital files on a tablet or a laptop or something, you're more than welcome to. David Priest, be nice to be able to import our own mini pics onto a card. Might try to set one up and share it. Absolutely, that would be really, really cool. Just pop that away. Yeah, definitely. Oh, Dave says, I'd print off. Oh no, Goblin! Literally caught my cat mid-air as she was about to pounce on all my painted models. Lightning reflexes! Dave says, I'd print off colour art cards. I could do it on the printer at work. Oh, I probably shouldn't have typed that. Mal says, 2 random non-Kickstarter questions if I may. Does anyone have a list of items needed for all of the scenarios, like campfire, VIP mini, fortifications, etc.? I'm not sure. Well, I think a lot of the scenarios I purposely left them quite open-ended so that you can adapt them to what pieces of terrain you've got, what your particular story is. So I can't say I've got an actual hardcore list, but if you do manage to kind of get together a list of things that you might need, then please let me know and I might look into actually sculpting some of those bits. Tim, I'm hating not having access to my work printers. Mal, and second, are you doing a St. George's Day promo this year? Well, that would be saying. Leave it with me. God, I can't believe it's been an hour and a quarter already. Absolute madness. So I think, sorry, 2 hours and a quarter. Sorry. I think I'm going to end the stream at about half 10. So if you do have any final questions for me or anything you'd like to talk about before the end of the stream, please do let me know. I mean, I did think I was going to have time to get a little bit of sculpting done, but I think we got very much talking about the models and about the range and showing off the sculpts and things like that. Be sure to tune in next week if you do want to see me sculpt some of the miniatures I've been showing today. Tim saying, how long do you think it will be before we see the winged dragons mentioned in the rulebook, if ever? Well, once again, I can't promise anything. Can't promise anything just yet, but I think that would be a very, very fun model to make. Lord Maiden saying, I wanted to ask if the other dragons have gone back up to normal price. Yep, so the St. George's deal from last year is finished now, but keep an eye on the Facebook pages for more dragon-related deals this year. I would really like to make a proper big winged dragon though, but that's the thing. Like, if I were to do a winged dragon, it would have to be an absolute beast, and because it would be an absolute beast, it would have to be a big expensive kit, and like I'm not sure if that many people would buy it. Because that's the thing, like when you are making a model, especially the bigger ones, you do really need to consider, yes, it's cool, but how many people actually would be happy slapping down 100 quid for a big model like that? And I know, obviously, like, there's, if it was Forge World, people wouldn't even bat an eyelid, but for a small indie company, spending £100 on one model is it's a lot. So I think if I were to do a big dragon like that, I would probably Kickstarter it, I think. Dave, just make sure it doesn't go the way of the Heresy Dragon. Oh, yeah. That is a beautiful dragon. It is one of my favourite miniature dragons ever. It's a beautiful sculpt. Oh, Hardwick, yeah, it's a case of how much more gaming variety can you get for £100 of existing smaller models compared to just the one big model. Tough one, absolutely. Maledge, what if it was on the digital workshop? That is a very good point, and it's actually, once again, one of the things that I've been considering. I think the thing I would have, the biggest challenge I would have is trying to get it in enough pieces that it would fit on the printing beds. Because if I was going to be doing a dragon with wings, I would do a dragon with wings. I wouldn't half-arse it. You're talking as big, like a wingspan. Probably a good 60 centimeter wingspan. I'd do a proper dragon, and the amount of pieces I'd have to put in a 3D printer would be insane. And also, like I like making things by hand. I love the prospect of sculpting by hand a big old dragon with wings. I just need to figure out whether it'd be financially worth doing it. Tim saying, needs to be a big girl, that winged dragon. Dave saying, you just need to cut the model in strategic places and it should fit okay. Absolutely. Like I said, it is doable. I would be able to do a digital sculpt of a massive winged dragon, but it's whether or not I'd want to. I mean, I could do one, but I feel like for the dragon, it'd have to be handmade. Robert Bassano, like the dragon of Mythic Games, Joan of Arc board game. Absolutely, that's also another gorgeous dragon. I mean, I think it would have to be mainly. Actually, no, because it's interesting because when I was first, coming up with the concept of Arcworld and things, when I was doing the dragons. So for those of you who I've spoken to about my dragons before, one of the main inspirations for them was the old Ray Harryhausen movies. I think it was Voyage of Sinbad, where there's like a dragon chained up in a cave and it's sprawling like a lizard and stuff. And I saw that when I was about 16, 17 and was like, oh my god, that is so cool. And that really informed my design of dragons. And also, when I was kind of thinking about doing a skirmish game, it was like, well, what's the point? What's the point of having a dragon with wings on a board that's, that small. You couldn't really use them, but then I guess it would just be kind of sprawling on the ground like a normal dragon, Smaug-like. So I'm not going to say no, as it is a kind of a dream project of mine, but I do need to kind of put on my business cap and think, well, Alex, is it something you really should be doing? You've got all these other things to do. You've got all these factions to sculpt. Da. So, we'll see. It might be a treat for me at some point in the future. Dave Jackson, the old Citadel Spines Dragon, you had to add the wing membranes with paper. That would cut down the amount of material needed. That is true, but then I think that the difficult thing is with that is that different people have different levels of hobby ability, and there are people who just love to kind of have a model, put it out the box, stick it together, and it's done. You have some people who just pay other people to do that. So I think it's an option, but I think there's probably a reason why that's not more of a common kind of problem solver. Ian said he'd Kickstarter it. Now, it's funny, I'm quite surprised you'd say that. You have the fairy dragon that kind of has wings, right? The winged dragon exists. Well, absolutely. Wayne Burton, love Ray Harryhausen, the centenary of his birth this year. Oh, amazing. What day is that? I'll be sure to have a proper movie day where we just absolutely binge watch them. To be fair, I did the paper membranes on one of the wings, the other one never got finished. Well, there we go. And I must admit, seeing the new Giants that GW have just announced, I do really want to finish my female Giant now, because I started the sculpt years ago, and she's been, I think she's packed up somewhere when I moved into my studio, so she is about. But it's always been like a kind of on my to-do list. I thought, do I release her for the first, second edition Kickstarter? Is three like big monsters overkill? And in the end, I decided to focus on the Forest Dragon and the Arcanid Queen. And I think that was probably a good decision, because the kind of the people who would have, who do spend that amount of money on single models. 2 is pushing it, 3 probably too much. Dagfin says the female giant would be perfect for the green and gilded. Very interesting prospect. Dave says the 2 previous giants were going to be my first warband. That's a very good idea. Timothy, any ideas on a time frame for rules for the model like the Fellbat? Well, actually, for the older factions, the rules will get updated when they get sculpted. So that's obviously it's going to take me a bit of time to get through everything. However, you are actually in luck. So when I was at Gotham to Samaria, which is a gaming weekend at Element Games. It was a really, really fun weekend. One of the lads there was playing with his Dark Lords warband. So I literally sat down on my laptop at the weekend with a beer and wrote out the first draft of the whole warband. So if you are interested in testing that out, do let me know. Ortega, it's taken both vids, but almost done with the painting of the Grim Goblin. Good job, buddy. Be sure to put the picture on the Facebook group. Mr. Hardwick, you should do a slave giant for fantasy football. Now there are BB rules for giants. Some themed ones would be amazing, like a Chaos Dwarf themed slave giant. Are there rules for giants? What, like full-size giants for Blood Bowl? Are you sure? Can I see them? I'm quite curious. Tim says he is interested in those rules. They're on my desk. If you pop me a message at some point over the next few days on Facebook, I'll get those sent off to you. All factions. We're still talking about Blood Bowl here for giants. Wow. Amazing. Could you send me the rules? Because I for one would love to sculpt a Warp Team Fantasy Football giant. Wink. Excellent, thank you. Two minutes. Well, that's a perfect amount of time, as we only have 2 minutes left of the stream. So I'd like to take this opportunity to thank each and every one of you for joining me this evening. I've had a lovely, lovely time. Thank you as well if you joined the previous one. You've listened to me literally waffle at you for 5 solid hours. I applaud you for that. That's an achievement in itself. I hope you've enjoyed the streams. I hope you've enjoyed this format. If you are interested in seeing more, I do a weekly stream on a Tuesday night at 8 PM UK time, where I sit and chat and paint or sculpt and kind of show off what I've been working on. So if you are interested in that kind of content, do let me know and do join us on Tuesdays. Thank you very much for joining. Thank you everyone in the chat, and I hope you had a wonderful day and a lovely evening. If you do have any more questions, do be sure to join the Arkworld Facebook group and post on there, and I'll get back to you as soon as you can. Also, the community is amazingly helpful. They usually, if someone does post up a comment or a question on there, about 5 or 6 different people beat me to it. We'll tune in again soon. Thanks for the stream. Thanks to everyone. Been good. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Thanks, Alex. Been a good, nice alternative to Luke. Well, I'm glad you had a good time. So, folks, once again, thank you so much for joining me this weekend, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening. Ta-ta for now.